Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillahi ala ni'matul islami wa kafa biha ni'ma. All praise and gratitude be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on His blessing of Islam, which suffices as a blessing. So I'd like to welcome you all on this evening. We are doing the 17th para. We've done half of it, and inshallah we'll complete it today. And today we're going to do Surah Hajj. Now, as the title suggests, Surah Hajj is going to be looking at all the ahkam relating to this ritual of Hajj. The period of revelation of this surah, which is Surah Hajj, is partly Makkan in the last days of our Prophet ﷺ, and then partly Madian also, because he had then migrated from here to Medina during this time, and some of the ayahs of Surah Hajj would be revealed in Medina. And you can actually almost note the change. You'll see the change of tone that's visible in some of these ayahs over here. The first hukum that we will see about permission to fight coming in over here, and that is only after an Islamic state has been set up in Medina. Now, there are 14 sajdas, as we know, in Quran, and uniqueness of Surah Hajj is also that there are 2 sajda which come in Surah Hajj. So let's just begin with the first ayah of Surah Hajj. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Ya ayyuhan nasu ttaqu rabbakum inna zalzalata as-saati shay'un azim. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful, O mankind, fear your Lord. Indeed, the earthquake of the hour is a tremendous thing. Now, this earthquake, which is the end of the world, the end of the universe that comes in, as to when it will come in, but when it comes in, it will be a fearsome and a tremendous thing, as this ayat states over here. Now, clearly, life and death is a common phenomenon. We see this every day on earth. We experience death. People are dying. Plants are dying, all the creations are dying. But this event will be so awesome, and it will be such an overwhelming event. There's a hadith of our Prophet ﷺ in which our Prophet ﷺ said that at that time when the hour will set in, only unbelievers would be living on the earth. And the day will dawn like any other day, and then at some point in time the earth will start to shake. And our Prophet ﷺ said that the condition of the earth would be like a ship which is being tossed by waves. So at last this day arrives for which mankind had been warned by every messenger. The noise on this day would be deafening, the mountains will become dust, people will be in a state of panic, the earthquake will be unending till everything is destroyed and all life ceases to exist. The day you will see it, every suckling female will forget that which she suckles, and every pregnant female shall abort her fetus, and you will see people as if they are drunk while they are not drunk, but Allah's torment is severe. Now, Kuffar had been demanding our Prophet ﷺ to bring this day. Quran makes clear that this day is something that people need to seek refuge from. So fearsome will be this day that nursing mothers will forget their child, the infant child, will go totally dependent on the mother. People will be indifferent to each other. They will be in a state of disorientation, almost looking like those who are drunk, although they will not be drunk. And among the people, there is one who debates about Allah without knowledge and follows every rebellious shaitan. Now, among people, there are some who are ignorant and who have this foolish attitude that they are ready for argument. They hear some word from Quran, or they read a little bit of Quran, or anything about Islam. It could be, simple, straightforward guidance. And then these people would engage others in useless argument. They'll get themselves entangled and they'll try and confuse others. What this does is that whenever doubts are in minds of people, and instead of trying to resolve them internally, and they try to actually begin to argue, having useless argument, these doubts will actually begin to aggravate. When people try and find crookedness in Quran, and then they pat their back and they say, oh, how intelligent we are, how much intellect we have, that we have been able to discover such and such issue in Quran that no one had thought about that. Well, if this is true, if they do that, then this is only going to only take them into misguidance. About whom it is destined that if someone takes him for a friend, he will misguide him and leads him to a torment of fire. So such doomed people are the friends of shaitan, and on the day of judgment, shaitan is destined to lead them into hellfire. O mankind, if you are in doubt about resurrection, then recall that we created you from dust, then from drop, and then from a clot, and then from a lump of flesh. either shaped or unshaped, so that we manifest our power to you. We retain in the womb whatever we please to a specified term, then we bring you out as babies till you reach your maturity. And among you there is one who dies, and among you there is one who returns to the most abject age, so that he knows nothing after having knowledge. And you see the land barren. Then once we send down water to it, it steers and swells and bring forth every kind of beautiful herbage. So a long ayah over here. This is an ayat which starts on with the word Ya ayyuhan nasu in kuntum fi raybin min al-bas, that if, O mankind, if you are in doubt about resurrection. One of the controversy and doubt that has endured over age is that how can people be raised again after they become dust? Now here is a very detailed response of Quran on this doubt. And Quran says man should actually look at his own creation. Where did he begin? How is his body being sustained? His body is being sustained from things that come out from this earth. From this lifeless minerals and lifeless protein we get life. The sperm through which we were created also came from this dust. And then it goes through different stages of growth, from a nutfa to a alaq to a muzlaq. And then these stages we can observe now. Obviously, now that we have these modern medical devices and telescopes and microscopes, etc., people can see the growth of an embryo. But then Allah would depute an angel at some point in time who would blow a ruh inside the embryo, and it is under the command of Allah. Now, every living creature that we know, every living creature has different gestation periods. Who has fixed this period? Who has actually made a period for elephant to give birth after so many months, and for cats after so many months, and for humans after so many months? Then the will of Allah, that He can actually give a male or a female. It can be pretty, it can be ugly, it can be intelligent, it can be foolish. This is not in anyone's power. This is not in anyone's power to complete an uncompleted fetus. This is only in the power of Allah. So the world of the fetus where it grows is a very small and a confined place. But for that place is the entire world for that fetus. If a fetus is informed that there is a whole vast world just outside, just a few inches outside, it probably will not be able to comprehend, like we cannot comprehend the other world right now. Like it is very difficult for us to comprehend the next world. Now also when we look at our own self, when we arrived in this world, we arrived in this world crying. Every baby cries when it arrives. But people around us were happy when we arrived over here. So when we leave this world, we should be people who are happy, and people around us should cry. I think that's the aim that we need to have for our life. Now this is the qudra, this is the creativity of Allah, that out of this insignificant drop, Allah created such a beautiful and a proportionate creation. A healthy child is such a great miracle. Everything is arranged for the child even before it arrives. And then the child rapidly grows, passing through different stages, and then it reaches an abject age. Some of us will reach to this abject age. Every one of us has a different expiry date. We expire after a certain period of time. For those who live long, they will reach to a stage when all knowledge that they have acquired is lost, and then death. So a full circle, turab, from the mud, to a nutfa, to a drop, to alaq, to muzgha, to tifl, a small baby, to shabab, when you are young. Then arzal al-umur, which is an old age, such an old age where people completely have forgotten what they had learned. And then death, and then turab. A complete circle, the entire circle being described in this ayat. That is because Allah is the truth, and that He gives life to the dead, and that He has power over all things. And that the hour has to come in which there is no doubt, and that Allah will raise up those who are in the graves. Everything in this world that we see has a pair. Like a male, there is a female. Like heavens, there is hell. What is the pair for dunya? Well, the pair for dunya is akhirat. If there is no hereafter, then this world is useless. It's a abas life. It's a purposeless life. In fact, it's quite an unfair and an incomplete life. Among men there is one who disputes about Allah with no knowledge and no guidance and no enlightening book. So those who dispute about Allah, they have three characteristics. First, that they have no ilm, they have no knowledge. anyone who uses his common sense, the common knowledge that Allah has given to all human beings, he will observe nature and he will find amazing synchronization. He will look at the constant cycle of life and death. He will know that there is a creator for something that comes to life and something that dies. The next is guidance. They have no guidance, Quran says. So first is that they have no ilm. Second is those people who dispute, they have no guidance. So they are, guidance has been brought by messengers. There are 124,000 prophets that have been sent with guidance. None of those prophets said that there is no hereafter. And lastly, it is a lack of enlightenment in this book. It's this enlightenment of this book which actually enables people to distinguish between right and wrong. So these are the three characteristics that have been defined for those about those people who dispute about Allah. Turning his side away to lead people astray from the way of Allah. For him is a disgrace in this world, and we will have him taste the punishment of fire on the day of judgment. Message over here is just stay clear of such people. Like we stay clear of people who have disease, because some disease are contagious. Then these suspicions and doubts that people have, some people who have constant suspicions and doubt, we should also stay clear of them, because these doubts are also infectious. Unless, of course, we are like a doctor who can cure him, or our iman, is very strong. Otherwise, our iman is likely to become weak. Like physically, also we can become, infected and diseased, and that's also true for our ruh. That if we stay in company of such people, then our ruh can also become sick. This is due to what your hand sent ahead, and that Allah is not unjust to His servant. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ عَلَى حَرْفٍ. And among men there is one who worships Allah standing on the verge. So if some good things happen to him, he's satisfied with it. And if a trial befalls him, he turns his face back. He loses both the world and the hereafter, and that is a manifest loss. So here Quran is referring to a group of people who are just razi, who are just satisfied with Islam, with Allah, as long as Allah keeps showering them with khair. As long as Allah keeps showering them with worldly goods. Their purpose of their ibadat is only for getting worldly benefits and worldly comfort. That's only their prayers. But when Allah tries them with some difficulty, they begin to get hopeless. Allah expects believers to put their trust to Him. They put their trust on Him. Allah wants people to enter into Islam in totality. Now, if people, when they encounter difficulties, they begin to blame Islam, they begin to find faults with this deen, then Quran says he loses both this world and the hereafter, and that is a manifest loss. Now, if in difficulty people leave Islam, they will suffer double loss. They will lose the world and they will also lose the hereafter. Difficulties that we encounter are there, and there is a purpose for these difficulties also. It is there to purify us. It is to purify our sins. It is also there to raise our position in paradise. He prays to someone instead of Allah who can neither harm him nor benefit him, and that is the error that takes him too far away from the right path. He rather prays to someone who harms him more likely than his benefit, an evil guardian and an evil associate. So this ayat, again, these two ayats re-emphasizing the earlier topics, that when people are riding in two boats, they are calling Allah, and when they are mayus, when they are disappointed, they call ghair Allah. Then with passage of time, they become distant to Allah. They have neither love of Allah in their hearts, nor fear of Allah, nor any hope from Allah. And instead, they are depending on people and self-created gods, and they are such an evil guardian and such an evil associate. Surely Allah will admit those who believe and do good deeds into gardens beneath which rivers flow. Surely Allah does what He intends. If someone thinks that Allah will never help him in this world and in the hereafter, he should stretch a rope to the sky, then cut off and see whether his efforts can really remove what irritates him. This is a situation of someone who stands on the edge and worships Allah. When he's faced with difficulty, he gives up all hope, expecting nothing good from Allah. It is said that such person can do what he likes to do. He can even put up a ladder and climb up onto the sky. Without Allah's help, without the help of Allah, he cannot achieve anything except hopelessness and except failure. And This is how we have sent down as clear signs, and the fact is that Allah leads whom He wills to the right path. So be certain in all situations that Allah's help will be there. Never be badguman with Allah. Never be cynical. Never be distrusting about His mercy and His help. If we have tawakkul on material and men, then we will surely be disappointed. One who sincerely prays to Allah, he will never be disappointed. And as for those who believe, and the Jews and the Sabians and the Christians and the Magians and those who ascribe partners with Allah, Allah will judge between them on the day of judgment. Surely Allah is a witness of all things. So first over here, those who believe, it comes in first, those who believe. Why are they addressed as believers? Because Christians and Jews and Magians, they also believe in Allah, and they also believe in the day of judgment. Why are they not being called believers over here, categorized separately? This is because the definition of Iman is believe in Allah, in all the prophets, and in the day of judgment. Such a person is a believer. Disbeliever is one who takes, who take any one of them, who doesn't believe in any one of them, even one of the prophets, then takes him out of the fold of Iman, or out of the fold of a believer. Now, Sabians are mentioned over here. Who are the Sabians? Well, they are the star worshippers or angel worshippers. They lived and continue to live in Iraq, part of Iraq and part of Iran. Majus, these are the dwellers of southern Iraq in a province, in a province called Faris. They are also called Parsis. They have symbol of God, but they believe in the God of goodness and the God of evil. Now, this ayat makes clear that in this world, these disputes between each one of them will not be, they will not remove, and Allah will judge between them on the day of judgment. So these disputes we cannot resolve. Allah will decide on the day of judgment. Alam tara anna Allah yasjudu lahu man fis samawati wa man fil ardi wa shamsu wal qamaru والنجوم والجبال والشجر والدواب وكثير من الناس وكثير حق عليه العذاب ومن يهن الله فما له من مكرم إن الله يفعل ما يشاء. This is night of sajda, so you can do a sajda now. Have you not seen that to Allah prostrates all those in the heavens and all those on the earth, and the sun and the moon and the stars, the mountains, the trees, the animal, and many from mankind, and there are many on whom punishment has become due, and the one whom Allah puts to disgrace, there is none to give him respect. Surely Allah does what He wills. So all creatures, all creations of our Rabb are obedient. They are in a state of submission to Him. Each one has its own law, each has its own path to follow, and every creation is bound by that path. Now all creations of Allah are humble, they humble themselves before Him, and they joyfully worship their Lord. But for many people, they are under the misconception that they are independent, that they are their own master, and there is no desire for them to bow down in front of their benefactor. Even acknowledging His existence is an issue for them. So with Allah is justice, and in the end, different people who have different attitudes and different obedience, they will be judged in a different way. These are two adversaries who have disputed about their Lord. As for those who disbelieve, garments of fire shall be tailored for them, and boiling water shall be poured from over their heads, whereby everything in their bellies as well as the skins will melt away, and for them there are hammers of iron. So in Musnad Ahmad we see a riwayat in which it is said that these hammers are so heavy that entire community of jinn and men cannot lift them. If placed on a mountain, this hammer, the mountain will actually become a dust. Now it's time for us to think and ponder about these ayats, and I think these are such strong graphic explanation being given over here so that we can stay clear of sin. Sin is so attractive, but when you look at this graphic description of the punishment, it should really keep us away. But please keep in mind that these punishments that Allah describes over here, Allah does not exaggerate anything. He will not overstate anything, even by an iota. So these are all true punishments that are stated in Quran. Whenever they will intend to come out of it, which means the fire, in grief they will be turned back to it, and it will be said to them, taste the punishment of burning. Surely Allah will admit those who believe and do good deeds to gardens beneath which rivers flow. They will be adorned in them with bracelets of gold and pearl, and their dresses in them will be of silk. Now a choice is being offered with Iman. There must be those who believe, they must do Amle Saleh, and for them such gardens are there and great place to be in. For they have been guided by the pure speech, and they were guided to the path of the praised one. So here the first step towards journey to paradise, the journey to Jannah. How did these people reach to such a beautiful end? Hearing Pak words, hearing Pak Baat, pure words. So those people who have talab, those who have longing and urge for taste for good words, they will be in such gatherings where there is no vulgarity, there is no immorality, there is no cheap and useless discussion. Because unless the environment is pure and clean, people cannot excel in good deeds. So we need to begin by tayyib amal, and this is equal, then it is with tayyib qawl, which is a pure and a beautiful word. Surely those who disbelieve and prevent people from the way of Allah and from Al-Masjid Al-Haram, the sacred mosque, we will have made for all men, which we have made for all men, where residents and visitors are equal, and whoever shall incline in them to commit deviation with injustice, we will make him taste a painful punishment. So Masjid al-Haram being mentioned over here, this is a mosque which is built around Kaaba. The rights over here for everyone are equal, meaning that this area which is designated for performing the arkan of Hajj, like Safa, like Marwa, like Mina, like Muzdalfa, Arafat, these are lands which are open for all Muslims, for those who are residents and for those who are coming from outside. And remember, when we gave Ibrahim the place of the house, saying, do not associate anything with me as my partner, and purify my house for those who make tawaf and those who stand and those who bow down and prostrate. So Allah guided Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam towards Makkah from Ur. And this must have been at that time like going from Paris to the Thar desert, because Ur used to be the center of civilization. And going to a place in Makkah which was completely cut off from civilization, middle of nowhere, middle of a desert. But then the water in the spring of Zamzam came over there, and then people came and started to settle down in Makkah, and Makkah began to flourish. Trading caravan would stop over here. The foundation of Kaaba were there. They were already there, as they had been put earlier by Hazrat Adam alayhi salam. They were there, but Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail alayhi salam built the walls on Kaaba. And the purpose being given over here, that do not associate anything with me. The purpose of Kaaba was that it should be free from shirk. And this purpose was completed by our Prophet ﷺ. Since the advent of Islam, there is no shirk which is committed in Kaaba. So Allah showed Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam the whole process of Hajj and asked him to make a call, an open announcement that whoever wants his sins to be forgiven should come here and perform Hajj. And proclaim among people the pilgrimage, that they should come to you on foot and every lean animal traveling through every distant hilly pathway. So when Ibrahim alayhi salam was commanded by Allah to proclaim the pilgrimage, which is Hajj, he asked Allah, how can my call reach to these people in the middle of a desert? And he received a reply that your task is just to call. Spreading it in the world is my responsibility. So Allah said that this is my responsibility. So it is said that Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam stood up on the Maqam Ibrahim, and he called all around in every direction, and he said, O people, your Lord has built a house. He has made it incumbent upon you to visit it. So you all obey the commandment of your Rabb. Hazrat Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhu says that the talbiyah that we all recite when we go for Hajj and for Umrah is a response to this call of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam. Now, 2,500 years had passed before our Prophet ﷺ, but for every year there's been a Hajj that would take place, even till today, so that they witness the benefits for them and recite Allah's name in a specified days over the provisions He gave them from the cattle. So eat of them and feed the distressed and the needy. Then they must remove their dirt and fulfill their vows and make the tawaf of the ancient house. So now this is a zikr of 10th Zil Hajj, the day people come back from Muzdalifah back to Mina, and then from Mina back to Masjid Haram, and they open up their ihram, and then this is after they have performed the qurbani, and what a fresh feeling that is, removing the dirt and removing the ihram. Having said that, whoever observes reverence of the things sanctified by Allah, it is good for him with his Lord, and permitted to you are cattle except that which is recited to you. So shun the filth of idols and shun the word that is false. Now this Shair Allah that is mentioned over here in this ayat, which is the sacrificial animals, Safa, Marwa, these must be respected. Like we respect the flag of a country, because the flag of the country represents the country. It must be respected. And the same is true for Shair Allah. Shair Allah are only those which Allah has declared. No other person has the right or the authority to give holiness to anything or any place. Our Prophet ﷺ in a hadith said, among the kabira guna, among the major sins are associating with Allah, disobedience of parents, false witness, and speaking lie in common everyday matters. So this is what it says, shun the filth of the idols and shun the word that is false. Standing upright for the obedience of Allah, not ascribing any partner to Him. Whoever ascribes a partner to Allah, it is as if he falls down from the sky, and either the bird snatches him or the wind carries him off to a far distant place. Now shirk is serving more than one master, and each master pulling one in one direction, the other one in another direction. One is almost like as if you are on the whims and the mercy of the wind, which tosses people in every direction. Having said that, if one observes the sanctity of the symbols of Allah, it surely is from the devotion of the hearts. And for you there is a benefit in them, which is the benefit in the cattle, up to a specified time, which means you can take benefit from them, you can actually have their milk, use their hair. Then their place of sacrifice is by the ancient house. For every nation we have prescribed the act of sacrifice, so that they recite Allah's name over the provision He gave them from the cattle. So your God is one God, therefore to Him alone you must submit, and give good news to those who turn to Him with humbleness. So the ritual of Hajj is not man-made, it is specified by Allah, the entire process is specified by Allah, and the same is true for other modes of worship like zakat, like salat, like fasting. Following these ritual is really the deen. Following this ritual is to show that we are obedient to the hukum of Allah. Those whose hearts are filled with awe when Allah is mentioned, and who are patient over their afflictions, and who are steadfast in salah, and who spend in the way of Allah out of what we have given them. The camel, we have made them for a symbol from Allah. In them there is a benefit for you. So mention the name of Allah over them as they are lined up for sacrifice. Then once their flanks fall down, which means after slaughter, eat of them and feed the one who is content and the one who wishes to receive. Thus we have made them, which means the animals, subjugated to you so that you may be grateful. So these animals have been subjugated to us. Now think about how big these animals are, how big a camel is. Many times the size of a man. Yes, it is subservient to the man. This is not the kamal of man that some of the animals can be domesticated. It is Allah who has put instinct in even in this big animals to be domesticated. And where Allah has not put this instinct, like small creatures, we cannot make them obedient. We cannot make an ant obedient to us or a fly obedient to us. Hence, even in this, we need to be grateful to Allah. لَن يَنَالَ اللَّهَ لُحُومُهَا وَلَا دِمَاؤُهَا وَلَكِنْ يَنَالُهُ التَّقْوَى مِنْكُمْ. It is neither their flesh nor their blood that reaches Allah, but what reaches Him is the taqwa, which is a sense of obedience on your part. And thus He has made the animals subjugated to you so that you can proclaim Allah's glory for guidance He gave you. And give good news to those who do good deeds, who are good in their deeds. So Allah does not need, Allah does not get impressed with the quantity. He doesn't need the meat. He doesn't need the blood of sacrifice. Those things don't reach Him. What he sees is inside us, what our intentions are, how sincere we are, how much taqwa is there inside us. It is with this feeling of humbleness, it is with this feeling of love and shukr. This is what is more important. He has no need for for our loveless and detached ritual, or ritual that are just for show off. In fact, in a hadith, our Prophet ﷺ said, Allah does not look at your faces or your wealth or your possession, but what He sees the condition of your heart and the condition of your deeds. So it's only our taqwa that reaches to Allah. So we must have this feeling of gratitude that Allah has invited us to His house. When we perform Umrah or when we perform Hajj, we must have that feeling of gratitude that Allah has invited us and that He gave us the ability to do this sacrifice. This must be considered a great honor for us. If all ibadat with this feeling, then it is going to bring a positive change in our lives. Surely Allah defends those who believe. Allah does not love anyone who is treacherous, ungrateful. So history has witnessed that Allah protects people of Iman. Qualification for Allah's help is that people must be willing to sacrifice anything for the cause of Allah, their life, their wealth, their business and their family. And when people pass this test, then Allah protects them. Allah does not love and help the ungrateful, unfaithful. So we need to become worthy of the help of Allah. The permission is given to those who are fought against because they have been wronged, and Allah will well able to give them victory. Now permission is granted to Muslims that they can fight, and the reason is because they have been wronged. The reason has been specified. Now it has become evident that 13 years of preaching in Makkah and restraint that was shown by Muslims didn't really have a positive effect on the kuffar of Makkah. They became more unjust, they became more cruel, so now it was necessary to stop them. And that stopping is by having war with them. And this war was in order so that peace can reign. If this were not done, a falsehood would have continued to prevail. So here the resistance is to prevent further cruelty. They are the ones who were expelled from their homes without any just reason except that they say, our Lord is Allah. Had Allah not repelled some of people by means of some other, the monasteries, the church and the synagogue and the mosque where Allah's name is abundantly recited would have been demolished. Allah will definitely help those who help His cause. Surely Allah is powerful, mighty. Now these places of worship of other religions being mentioned over here, monasteries, churches and synagogues, these are religions whose basis and foundation is on the revealed text and been brought in by messengers. These religions were there, they were the Muslims at that time, but they became distorted when the original teachings were lost. Hence they were superseded by new revelations and a new messenger. So by the time, when we look at the arrival of Hazrat Isa alayhi salam, till the arrival of Hazrat Isa alayhi salam, the Jews were the Muslims. Synagogue was the masjid. That was a sacred place of worship. When Jews did kufr of Hazrat Isa alayhi salam, they became the kuffar. And so at that time, the followers of Hazrat Isa alayhi salam, they were the Muslims of that time. And then with the arrival of our Prophet ﷺ, now it is mandatory that masjids are the place where Allah's name is taken, and they, Christians are no longer considered to be true believers. So here, all these places that are stated over here, which is the synagogues, the churches, and the monasteries, these places of worship are there. They have all a kind of a relationship with the teaching of the Prophet, and hence they need to be respected. Every Muslim needs to even respect them now. Hazrat Umar Raziyallahu Anhu, he refused to offer prayer in a church because he had a fear that later generations would actually destroy this church and make a mosque over there. The one who helps Allah are those who, when we gave them power in the land, establish salah, pay zakat, bid what is right and forbid what is wrong, and with Allah rests the end result of affairs. In this ayat, there is a reflection of the personality of a Muslim which is liked by Allah. The zikr, the fikr, the struggle, the establishment of prayer, giving zakat, enjoining what is right and forbidding what is wrong. And if they reject you, so did they reject the people before them, the people of Nuh, and Ad and Samud, and the people of Ibrahim and the people of Lut, and the people of Madian as well. And Moses was rejected, so I gave some respite to the disbelievers, then I seized them. So how was my punishment? How many towns have we destroyed as they were wrongdoers? So they have fallen on their roofs and deserted wells and lofty palaces. Have they not then traveled in the land so that they should have had hearts to understand with or ears to listen with. The fact is that it is not the eyes that turn blind, but blind are the hearts which are in the chest. So read the history. The history is a sign from Allah that people who do not learn lesson, then they face the punishment. And these signs are there all along. These signs are there to warn people not to travel in such paths. They ask you to bring the punishment sooner, while Allah will never go back on His promise. The fact one day with your Lord is like 1,000 years according to your calculations. And how many towns were there to whom I allowed respite while they were wrongdoers? Then I seized them, and to me is the final return. So if people see those who are disobedient, they flourish and they prosper, we shouldn't really reach to this conclusion that Allah is razi with them and that He would not call them for accountability. This is just a timing difference, because with Allah, our one day is like 1,000 years. Our 1,000 years is like one day with our Lord. So, O people, I am no more than a plain warner to you. So this ayat sums up the mission and responsibility of the messenger, and that is for calling to warn people. So those who believe and do good deeds, for them there is forgiveness and dignified provisions. As for those who strive against our signs, trying to defeat, they are the people of fire. We did not send any messenger before you, nor a prophet, but when he desired, the shaitan interfered with his wishes. So Allah nullifies what the shaitan casts. Then Allah makes his verses firm, and Allah is all-knowing and all-wise. Now this is a difficult ayat, but for every messenger there is a key desire, and that is that khair must spread. Khair must spread. People must be saved from the fire. And shaitan has an opposite mission. And shaitan wants to put waswasa, he puts doubts, he puts suspicions to cause differences between people through incorrect understanding of what is being said. Sometimes he would induce sleep in people. Sometimes he makes people irritable and angry on these revelations. So shaitan's effort is really to convince people that he doesn't exist. Shaitan wants people to be heedless and to have mistrust about Allah, so that he may make the suggestions cast by the shaitan a trial for those in whose heart there is a disease, and whose heart are hard, and surely the wrongdoers are in the utmost opposition. Now this ayat is referring to the trial from Allah, who are afflicted by these fitnas, whose hearts are sick. Heart is considered to be the center seat for feeling, center seat for emotion. We use these words in English: hard-hearted, heartfelt, heartless. These are the words that we use. So heart houses our soul. Our soul is residing in the house, in our heart. Even our iman is inside our heart. Hence, people with weak iman, for them a slight trial can be fatal for their iman. The disease of the hearts are numerous, like batar, itrana, to be smug, to be self-conceited, like bukhal, to be tight-fisted, to have hasad, jealousy, to have nifaq, to have takabbur. And what is the remedy? What is the cure for the disease of the heart? Remembrance, the zikr of Allah. Zikr of Allah is like the wholesome food for the heart, because it also keeps the heart illuminated. And so those who have been given knowledge may know that it is the truth from your Lord, and they may believe in it, and their hearts may become humble towards it. And Allah guides, and Allah is the guide of the believers to the straight path. So how do we really soften our hearts? And that is only remembrance of Allah, the fikr of accountability, the recognition of Allah, the responsibility that Allah has imposed upon us. All these combine to make our hearts soft. Those who disbelieve will not cease to be in doubt about it forever, until the hour of judgment comes upon them suddenly, or there comes to them the punishment of a barren day. So if you look at the disbelievers, they will always keep falling in, victim to this disease of the heart. And one of them is being mentioned over here, which is shak, which is suspicion, which is doubt, until the hour, the arrival of the day of judgment, or the arrival of the hour. The kingdom on that day is for Allah. He will judge between them. So those who believed and did good deeds shall be in the gardens of bliss. As for those who disbelieve and rejected our signs, they are the ones for whom there is a humiliating punishment. Those who left their home in the way of Allah, then were slain or died, Allah will certainly give them a good provision, and surely Allah is the best provider of provision. So here Muslims are being encouraged for war, for hijrat, for migration, and it is being said that whatever losses they will sustain in leaving their homes and fighting for the way of Allah, Allah will compensate them, and none of their deeds will go wasted. He will surely cause them to enter a place with which they will be well pleased, and Allah is surely all-knowing, forbearing. Having said that, whoever retaliates with the like of which he has been afflicted, then he has been oppressed, Allah will certainly help him. Indeed, Allah is most pardoning and most merciful. So Allah's help is with the victims, those who have been oppressed, while the right has been given to them to take revenge, but the higher level of forgiveness is also being stated over here. For this is also the attribute of Allah. Allah also forgives when we make mistakes. So the encouragement over here is that like Allah forgives you, you must also inculcate this attribute of being forgiving, because it will result in great ajr on the day of judgment. That is because Allah makes the night enter into the day and makes the day enter into the night, and that Allah is all hearing and all seeing. It makes very clear that Allah is not detached from this universe. There is a time for everything. Every night is followed by the day. Things do not remain in this state forever. We may be going through a difficult patch of our life, a very difficult night, but this will end. Allah will remove these difficulties. It's just a matter of time. That is because Allah is true, and that whatever they invoke besides Allah is false, and that Allah is the high, the great. Quran says, you keep striving, you keep working, don't be paralyzed by difficulties. Trust in Allah. Name of Allah is Al-Haq. He will uphold the truth. Did you not see that Allah has sent down water from the sky, whereby the land becomes green? Surely Allah is subtle, all aware. So Allah's rahmat in form of rain and comes in, and then the desert field begins to thrive, it begins to bloom with life. But then the time for rain is fixed, when this rain will arrive. We cannot rush this. It will arrive at its destined time. To Him belongs all that is in the heavens and all that is in the earth, and surely Allah is self-sufficient, the praised. Did you not see that Allah has made subservient to you everything on the earth, and the ships that sail at the sea with His command, and He holds the sky so that it cannot fall onto the earth except with His permission? Surely Allah is compassionate and merciful to the believers. So everything is in the qudrat of Allah. Till He wants, there is a khair and benefit, and when He desires, the very things which are beneficial can become destructive. He is the one who gives life to you, then He brings death to you, and then He will give you life again. Surely man is very ungrateful. So in 1 second, 16 people die. In 24 hours, 140,000 people will die. So far our name is not added to this list, and we still have time. We have time, and this time we must use to earn as much as we can for the hereafter. For every nation we have appointed a way of worship they are to observe. Therefore they should never quarrel with you in the matter, and do call them to your Lord. Surely you are on the right way. So these modes of worships are there to really determine who is obedient to Allah. Allah doesn't need our worship, but He wants to see which of us is obedient to Him. The spirit is the love of Allah. The one who loves Allah will find no difficulty in following these rituals. And if they dispute with you, say to them, Allah is the best aware of what you do. Allah will judge between you on the day of judgment about what you used to dispute. Do you not know that Allah knows all that is in the heavens and in the earth? Surely that is contained in a book. Indeed, it is easy for Allah. They worship besides Allah the objects for which He did never send down any authority, about which they have no knowledge. And for the wrongdoers there shall be no helper. When our clear verses or signs are recited to them, in all their clarity you can recognize disgust on the faces of the disbelievers. They seem to attack those who recite to them our verses. Say, shall I then tell you about something more disgusting than that? The fire. Allah has promised it to those who disbelieve, and it is an evil end. So people who get irritated when the ayahs are recited, they are being mentioned over here. Quran says you can see the disgust on the face of these people, and then it says that the worst for them, the more disgusting thing is the fire, which will be their ultimate end. Ya ayyuhan nasu duriba masalum fastami'u lahu. O people, here is a parable set forth for you, so listen to it carefully. All those whom you invoke besides Allah can never create even a fly, even though they all join hands together for that. And if a fly snatches something away from them, they cannot release it from its possession. Equally feeble are the invoker and the invoked. So this ayat really beautifully states the true nature of shirk. Think about a fly, how insignificant a fly is. But can any deity create a fly? Look at the creativity of Allah, who has created these massive and magnificent galaxies to a single atom, large animals and a single cell. Now it is said over here that these deities are so helpless that whatever offering that people are placing in front of them, if a fly was to take it away from these deities, they do not even have power to get it back. That's how helpless these deities are. Ma qadarullah haqqa qadrihi, inna Allah laqawiyyun aziz. They did not recognize Allah in His true esteem. Indeed, Allah is powerful, mighty. So the problem is that people don't really truly recognize Allah, how powerful and how mighty He is. And they did not give Him the rightful position. Allah chooses messenger from angels and from people. Surely Allah is all hearing and all seeing. He knows what is in front of them and what is behind them, and to Allah all matters return. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu rka'u wasjudu wa'budu rabbakum faf'alul khaira la'allakum tuflihun. So this is an ayat of sajda again, so we need to do a sajda. O you who believe, bow down in ruku and bow down in sajda and worship your Lord and do good deeds so that you may achieve success. So the first step is ritual. That's the first thing, to bow down in front of Allah, to do ruku, to do sajda, to worship Allah and do good deeds. And that's the only way, being obedient to Allah, being humble and recognizing that Allah is the highest authority. So the last ayat, which is where Surah Hajj is going to end. وَجَاهِدُوا فِي اللَّهِ حَقَّ جِهَادِهِ هُوَ اجْتَبَاكُمْ وَمَا جَعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ. And strive hard in Allah's way, a struggle that is befitting for Him. He has chosen you and did not impose any hardship on you in the religion, the faith of your father Ibrahim. He named you as Muslim earlier and also in this Quran. So all the prophets, all the messengers who came, they were all Muslims. The Quran says over here, He named you Muslims earlier and also in this Quran, so that the messengers become a witness to you and you become a witness to other people. So establish salah, pay zakah, and hold fast to Allah. He is your protector. So how excellent is He as a protector and how excellent as a helper. So this ayat begins, in the beginning it says, وَجَاهِدُوا فِي اللَّهِ حَقَّ جِهَادِهِ. Strive hard, do jihad in Allah's ways like a struggle, which is befitting for Him. So what is this struggle? What is this jihad? Which is recognizing the truth, declaration of truth, propagating of truth, struggling, striving, practically implementing the system. So with this we stop over here. Barakallahu lana wa lakum fil Quran al-Azim wa nafana wa iyyakum bil ayati wa zikril hakim.